is one other point I wanted to touch on that we haven't discussed this morning, and that's the succession of the Dalai Lama. And I think it's really important we talk about this now, because the Chinese Communist Party most certainly is thinking about this now and has its eye on it. So I just want to speak very, very plainly and say that it is not for the Chinese Communist Party to determine who the next Dalai Lama is. It is for the people of Tibet and the Tibetan Institute. They alone can determine it. Reincarnation cannot be manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party, and this British government needs to start making that very clear to the Chinese Communist Party now. It will be too late to wait until the Chinese Communist Party has worked out how they're going to try and manipulate it and control this. And so for the people of Tibet, for your freedom and for your future, we need that focus to be there now, but be very clear that when that time comes, I will stand with you, Lord Alton will stand with you, and we will be very clear it is the Tibetan people who determine their own future, and you determine the Dalai Lama. And thank you again for the privilege of being able to join you all this morning.
Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Long live! Long live! Long live! Tibetans in Tibet! Tibetans in Tibet! Tibetans in Tibet! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Xi Jinping! Xi Jinping! Xi Jinping! Xi Jinping! Free Tibet! To invite our first honoured guest, Norbu Fulford. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we gather under the shadow of a profound and painful history. All those years ago, the streets of Lhasa surged with a courage that the world has never forgotten, even if it has often failed to match it. March the 10th is not just a date on a calendar, it is the heartbeat of a nation that refuses to stop beating. We remember the thousands who stood before the Norbu shielding the Dalai Lama, and the generations since who have carried the flame of Tibet in their hearts while living under the flame of an iron curtain. But as we honor that courage, we must also confront a difficult truth. For decades, the international community has been far too inert. While Tibetans were being subjected to re-education, while their monasteries were being turned into museums, and while their children were being funneled into colonial boarding schools to strip them of their language and identity, much of the world chose the path of least resistance. We've watched as economic interests were allowed to silence moral obligations. We've seen diplomatic concerns expressed in hushed tones, while the cultural erasure of the Tibetan people proceeded in broad daylight. This global inertia has not been a neutral act. It has been a green light to those who seek to erase a civilization. However, the landscape is shifting. We are moving past the era of mere statements of concern into an era of legislative accountability. I want to highlight the vital work of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, for which I'm the Executive Director. IPAC is coming to represent a historic shift in how the world's democracies face the challenges posed by the People's Republic of China under Xi Jinping. These lawmakers within IPAC have moved the needle from passive observation to active defense. Recently, IPAC's coordinated efforts have been instrumental in bringing the issue of forced labor and mass collection of DNA in Tibet to the forefront in national parliaments around the world. By bridging the gap Between lawmakers in now 45 democratic parliaments, IPAC is working to ensure that Tibet is no longer a side issue. In Brussels last year, during our summit, lawmakers negotiated and agreed a model resolution on Tibet. This has now started to pass in IPAC parliaments, and I've got some good news for you. This morning, a few hours ago, the Australian Senate and the House both passed unanimously a resolution based on the Brussels summit motion that we negotiated and agreed last year. So it's starting to move now, and it just passed in Australia. So I think that IPAC's work proves that when we stop acting as isolated nations and start acting as a unified front for democratic human rights, the inertia can break. But we can't do this alone. The world has to recognize that Tibet is not a historical relic, and it's not a complicated territorial dispute. It is a contemporary crisis of self-determination. So here's what we have to demand. We have to demand an end to the colonial boarding school system that separates at least 1 million Tibetan children from their heritage. We need targeted sanctions against officials responsible for religious persecution and for the surveillance state. And critically, especially now, we need a formal rejection from democratic governments of any interference by the PRC in the succession of the Dalai Lama. To the people of Tibet, including many of you here, who continue to resist with a dignity that shames the world's silence, we see you. To the activists and lawmakers of IPAC, thank you for turning the tide. We have a lot of work to do, and we assure you today, we make a commitment to keep going. The era of looking away is over. Today, we do more than remember the uprising. We have to commit to an uprising of conscience in every capital of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Luke is the co-founder and executive director of the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance of China, and I'd like to thank you for your friendship. Our next guest, it's my pleasure to introduce Alicia Kearns, the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs and the former chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Thank you, Alicia.
Good morning, everyone, and saying to all the Tibetan community who are here together this morning. We are here in solidarity with the people of Tibet and with the communities that live here who have families still in Tibet. We mark the 67th anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising, when tens of thousands of Tibetans defended your culture, your people, your way of life, and your independence. You were met with overwhelming military force, a determination to crush your spirit, to crush your people, your language, and your way of life. And yet 67 years later, the Tibetan people are still standing, still speaking, still defending your culture, your identity, and your faith. That is not defeat. It is extraordinary resilience in the face of what you face. But the repression did not end in 1959, and it continues today. Monks are imprisoned, writers are silenced, children are separated from their families and sent to state boarding schools to strip them of their identity, their names, their language, and who they should be. The Chinese Communist Party's goal is quite simple, and it is to erase Tibetan identity, to control the narrative, and to silence anyone who dares to speak out in support of you and your people. This is not, as we know, limited to Tibet. Tragically, we see the same repression, whether it be in Xinjiang and more recently in Hong Kong. But increasingly, that repression reaches beyond the borders of China. And so I want to thank you all for gathering today, particularly those of you who still have family in Tibet or anywhere where the Chinese Communist Party attempts to reach them and to silence them. because by coming here today, you are being defiant and you are refusing to be silenced. Transnational repression is the long arm of the Chinese Communist Party, and they will go to no ends, they will stop at no ends to silence you. So Britain must be clear where we stand. We must be a country where people can speak freely, where you have no fear that the Chinese Communist Party will be able to reach you or silence you, intimidate you, let alone knock on the door of your neighbours and ask to have you kidnapped and extradited to China. We must have no truck with that, and we must be absolutely clear, because no foreign government should be able to intimidate people here on British soil. And that is why China must be put in the enhanced tier of the foreign interference scheme, because we need to make sure we track those that they deploy to silence people who would come together like today, in harmony and in peace and in solidarity with others. And that is also why we must not see the Chinese Communist Party's new embassy approved. To do so sends exactly the wrong message at a time where we must say that this government and all of us in Parliament will accept no foreign hostile activity on our shores. To agree the embassy in light of the treatment of Jimmy Lai, in light of the treatment of the people of Tibet, in the light of the treatment of all those political prisoners being tortured across China, is unforgivable. To do so when we see them committing hostile acts on our shore is an act of complete national derision and to harm our own country. Silence does not protect human rights. Silence does not protect vulnerable communities. And silence only emboldens those who seek to do harm and to allow repression to continue without consequence. The Tibetan people have shown for 67 years that no amount of repression will extinguish a people's determination to live freely and in peace. And so I stand with you. And while 67 years is a long time to wait, the Tibetan people have not given up hope. And so we here must stand with them and keep that fire burning, because they need us to show that that the candles they light are being burned in solidarity with us. So I say Tashi Delek, good fortune and blessings to you all. Long live Tibet. Thank you for coming here today, and we must continue to stand by the Tibetan people, and I will continue to do that in every way I can.
Thank you, Alicia. And our next guest, our honourable friend, Lord David Alton, who is the chair of the Joint Committee on Human Rights and a member of the House of Lords. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Friends, it's a great pleasure to follow Alicia Kearns, not least because of the work that she did as chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee in the House of Commons, some of which we have followed up on the Joint Committee on Human Rights. She ended her remarks by emphasising the importance of speaking out, which is why we're here today, and the danger of silence. It was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who is a hero of mine, who stood against the Nazis in Germany when so many people were silent, who said not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. It is for us the poison of our times that there is so much indifference and so much silence. And it's for that reason why, when I was invited by the organisers to come and stand with you today in an act of solidarity, I immediately said yes. Because over the years that I've raised issues about Tibet in Parliament, I know how lonely a battle it has been for so many of you. On that infamous day on the 10th of March 1959, when the PRC annexed Tibet and prevented a free and sovereign people from living in their own homeland, with their own laws, with their own traditions, with their own religion, with their own customs, and the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, was forced into exile. On that day, the world had a glimpse of what the PRC's intentions would be wherever it was going to set its foot. And whether it was in Hong Kong, whether it was in Xinjiang and what happened to the Uyghurs there, and what may happen in Taiwan in the future, the story has been the same. And so we ignore those events of the 10th of March 1959 at our peril. It is why we gather here. My own committee recently carried out an inquiry into transnational repression, and we found that the greatest offender of TNR, of transnational repression, and there are plenty on the list. Russia was on the list, Iran was on the list, many other countries were on the list. But the greatest offender, according to our report, which is available online and which was debated in the House of Lords only 10 days ago, the greatest offender was the People's Republic of China. We took evidence from people like Chloe Chung, the brave young woman who, along with others like Carmen Lau, has had a bounty placed on her head of $1 million Hong Kong dollars. Why? Because as a young girl, 14, 15 years of age, she and hundreds of thousands of others in Hong Kong said they wanted to live in a democratic and free society, and they raised their yellow umbrellas as an expression of their beliefs in a democratic society. And for that, she is now hunted down in this country in fear that she may be abducted and taken back to the People's Republic of China, where we know what fate will await her. We know because we see what has happened to a British citizen, to Jimmy Lai, whom Alicia mentioned in her remarks a few moments ago. I know Jimmy, I know his wife, I know their son. I met them in the better days, better times in London, but also in Hong Kong. In fact, he was the last person I met in Hong Kong in 2019, having monitored the last fair and free elections there before returning to the United Kingdom. And Jimmy was in no doubt about what would happen to him, but he decided he would stay. He would stay in order to be an example to others, just as Chloe decided to come and speak to our committee and to waive her anonymity because she said she would not be silenced. She would speak, just like Rahima Mahmood from the World Uyghur Congress, this extraordinary, brilliant Uyghur woman, musician, came to our committee and spoke again without anonymity because she would not be silenced. So that is why we're here today. It's why we have to go on speaking out about Tibet. All the things that have happened in Tibet have happened to the Uyghurs too. And it's no surprise to me that the man who conducted most of the atrocities in Tibet was given charge of Xinjiang. The reproductive rights policies of forced abortion, forced sterilization, forcible numbers of children that people are allowed to have, the suppression of freedom of religion or belief. Article 18 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights insists that everyone has the right to believe, not to believe, or to change their belief. What has been done to Tibetan Buddhists verges on the genocidal, in preventing people from exercise their religion, in preventing people from being able to bring up their own children in the way that they would wish, instead of putting them into forced boarding accommodation, which I heard Luke de Pulford referring to in his remarks a few moments ago. What has happened there has become the playbook for what has been done in Xinjiang. It is the playbook that is being implemented increasingly under the national security law in Hong Kong, and it would be the playbook that would be used in Taiwan as well. We look at that deadly quartet of China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia, and we see what they have done to disfigure the world. We are living in perilous and dangerous times, and one of the reasons for that is because we failed to act when we saw what happened in Tibet. We've equivocated for far too long in calling out the Chinese Communist Party, and instead of calling them out, the man who lives opposite here in Downing Street went to Beijing with the title deeds in his pocket for a new mega embassy in London. When Chloe Chung was asked what she thought about that, she said, "I'm truly frightened, because if I'm dragged in there, I will never come out." Those were her words. "I will never come out." This is not what is happening in Tibet, it's not what's happening in Xinjiang, it's not what's happening in Hong Kong. Transnational repression is happening in this country. So I would commend the debate that we had in the House of Lords to you. Tibet is mentioned in that debate and the other places I've been referring to. It's all there available on Hansard. Distribute it to other people and don't let them silence you. Let me finish by saying that the university where I've been a professor in Liverpool, I invited His Holiness the Dalai Lama to come to Liverpool. We had 3,000 people to hear him. Before he arrived, the Chinese embassy telephoned the Vice-Chancellor of our university to say that there will be no more Chinese students in your university if you allow this to go ahead. they telephoned the Lord Mayor of the city and said, if you give a civic reception to the Dalai Lama, we will break the twinning arrangement with Shanghai. Well, I'm glad to say that we were not intimidated. The visit went ahead. His Holiness spoke in a characteristically gentle, beautiful way and was greeted by thousands of people in Liverpool. The local newspaper, the Liverpool Echo, ran the headline, "Hated by the CCP, loved in Liverpool." We have got to show our love, which will always overcome hate. We have got to speak out, silencing those who would denounce the freedoms and the liberties that we enjoy in this country and which Tibet is entitled to enjoy as well. So it's my privilege to stand with you today and to encourage you in what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Apologies, it's me again. There was just one other point I wanted to touch on that we haven't discussed this morning, and that's the succession of the Dalai Lama. And I think it's really important we talk about this now, because the Chinese Communist Party most certainly is thinking about this now and has its eye on it. So I just want to speak very, very plainly and say that it is not for the Chinese Communist Party to determine who the next Dalai Lama is. It is for the people of Tibet and the Tibetan Institute. They alone can determine it. Reincarnation cannot be manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party, and this British government needs to start making that very clear to the Chinese Communist Party now. It will be too late to wait until the Chinese Communist Party has worked out how they're going to try and manipulate it and control this. And so for the people of Tibet, for your freedom and for your future, we need that focus to be there now, but be very clear that when that time comes, I will stand with you, Lord Alton will stand with you, and we will be very clear it is the Tibetan people who determine their own future, and you determine the Dalai Lama. And thank you again for the privilege of being able to join you all this morning.
Well, I'm very happy to endorse what Alicia has just said to you. That is a fundamental principle contained in Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that I referred to earlier on. Please write to your members of Parliament, encouraging them to take the same stand that Alicia and I will be taking. I'll quote as well something that I didn't read out in my remarks, but from our report, it says in no uncertain terms, I quote, "China conducts the most comprehensive transnational repression campaign of any foreign state operating in the United Kingdom." And we said that the failure to put the Chinese Communist Party onto the enhanced tier of the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, it's called FIRS, that failure risks undermining the credibility and the coherence of FIRS. So again, when you're writing to members of Parliament, members of the Commons will not necessarily have seen this debate or read this report, even though it's a joint report of both houses. Send them the link. Say, please read this and act on what was said in Parliament. Don't just use words, please act as well.
Thank you, Lord David Alton. Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! China, China, China! China, China, China! China, China, China! I'd like to invite a surprise guest. He's a former MP and forever a friendly supporter of Tibet. Mr. Powell. Thank you. Norman Powell. Norman Baker, sorry. Norman Baker. Apologies. It's all right.
Who got my there you are. Thanks, guys. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words. I didn't know I was going to be here this morning, but I found some space in my diary, so I've come along. So I haven't prepared this sort of eloquent speech, which you just heard from David Alton or Alicia Kearns, but I can speak, I think, from the heart, hopefully. First of all, let me say I agree with everything that the last two speakers have said. David Alton, a proud member of the House of Lords, and of course a former Liberal MP, and Alicia Kearns, of course, as well, holds a flag for Tibet in what she does as well. Picking up in random a couple of points I've heard. First of all, in terms of the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, this absolutely is a matter for Tibet. and not a matter for the Chinese government. And what we need to do now as a collection of Western countries is ensure that together all Western countries and others, if we can get others on board, make it very plain to the Chinese we will not recognise their fake Dalai Lama when they announce him, as undoubtedly they will. If we make that very plain as a collection of countries in advance, then we can perhaps stop the Chinese behaving as they intend to do. And I have to say, you can't make this up. How can you have a communist, atheist regime telling us about reincarnation of a Lama? I mean, in what sense does that make any sense whatsoever? So we can act together on that point, and it's important we do so. That's the next focal point, I think, in many ways. Let's hope it doesn't arrive for quite some time, but it will arrive at some point, and we should be ready for it. Secondly, David Alton referred to the, was it Alicia, I think, I can't remember which one it was, referred to the new Chinese embassy, which unfortunately has been given permission in the old Royal Mint building, despite the fact that it is a prestigious building and very close to the City of London, and our security services have made it very plain they were concerned about the possibility of the Chinese tapping into the cables which run underneath and which of course relate to financial matters in the City of London. That's of perhaps less concern to you, but it should be of concern to the government. It appears not to be of concern to the government. And there seemed to be a deal that Starmer wanted to agree that before he went off to Beijing. In my dealings with the Chinese over many years, either on behalf of the Tibetan community or alternatively as a minister, and I've been to Beijing as a transport minister when I dealt with them over there, and I have to say that was a very curious experience. It was little different to how the emperor would have behaved about 1910 in terms of the structure there was over there, I found. But in any case, what I've discovered over the years is this. The Chinese do not respect concessions. They don't. They see them as a sign of weakness. And the natural tendency that we might have in this country, and I think you have as a community, to just say, well, we'll go some way and you come some way towards us. The Chinese see that as weakness, I'm afraid. They open the till, they put your concession in the till, and they shut the till without giving you anything in return. And one example of that, a very clear example of that, which I was incensed about when I was a Member of Parliament back in 2008, I think it was 2008, there was a written ministerial statement issued by the Foreign Office, which appeared in the parliamentary record, to say that Britain had changed its position on Tibet and now recognised it as part of China. That was a terrible thing for them to do, because we were the country, Britain, that was in Tibet. We were in many countries, I'm afraid, in the past, for all sorts of reasons, mainly trade reasons. But we were there. We were there in the 1930s. We were there for the induction of, I don't know quite what the word is, coronation, whatever the word is, and forgive me for not doing the correct word, of His Holiness the Dalai Lama back in the 1930s. We were there for that ceremony, and no other country, as far as I'm aware, was there. We were there doing trade deals with Tibet. We signed a convention in 1914, the Simla Convention. China was not part of that. That was a bilateral arrangement between Britain and Tibet. You know, there's no question. I mean, there's no question in my mind about the history of Tibet as an independent country, but there's absolutely no question, there cannot be a question between 1911 and 1949 that Tibet was independent. That's absolutely clear. Own foreign policy, own government, own stamps, own banknotes, every single measure of an independent country was there. And there's no point in the Chinese trying to rewrite history and say that it was always part of China. It certainly wasn't. Now, what we in Britain have, and it's important, is we have the historical record of that. And I've been down to the National Archives and dug out material on that. So we have a duty in this country, apart from looking forward to the future in a constructive way, is to make sure the past is not rewritten. Because dictatorships like to rewrite the past, and we must not let them do that. One more thing I'll say, if I may, which is we're in a very, very dangerous and difficult world at the moment. We've got a world where the rule of law has been cast aside, where we're now back to the 19th century or 18th century, where might is right. and those who've got the biggest weapons and the most power feel they can ride roughshod over countries. We've seen it with Russia invading Ukraine. We've seen it, I'm afraid to say, with the United States and Israel, by the way they're behaving towards Venezuela in the US case, and now Iran as well. This is to completely behave illegally in terms of international law. And of course we've seen it with China in terms of Tibet, Xinjiang, or East Turkestan as the Uyghurs call it. And I fear, if we're not careful, we'll see it in terms of Taiwan as well. Because that's what the Chinese want to do. The Chinese government wants to do is to take Taiwan back. And they will do so if they think the West is distracted or in fact is no longer concerned about nationality, is no longer concerned about rights and wrongs. And if we believe that might is right as the way forward, then, you know, I fear for small countries all over the world, because that is not a good position to be in. So it's a difficult situation. And what we have to do in Britain, and what we have to do with you, is to make sure that the flame never gets extinguished. That we continue to argue for what is right in international law. We continue to argue for your rights as a country. We continue to argue for human rights in Tibet and everywhere else. And we continue to make the case for a reform to what we have in Tibet, to move forward to a position where Tibetans can once again at some point in the future reclaim their own country and run it as they want, as you want, because that's your right to do so. It's your country, it's not the Chinese country, it's your country. So let's keep that flame there, that objective there, and let's all march together towards that. Thank you for asking me to come along today.
Thank you, Mr. Norman Baker. And next, I'd like to introduce our chairman, Tenzin.
And good morning. I'm Norbu, chairperson of Tibetan community in Beijing. Dear brother and sister, Honorable UK Parliamentary Alicia Kearns, MP, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, and Lord David Alton, Chair of the Joint Committee on Human Rights, Luke D. Palford, Founder and Director of Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, and Norman Baker, former MD, and also representative of various organizations, fellow Tibetan friends and supporters of Tibet. It is truly warming to see many of you here today. Thank you for standing with us in support of freedom, human rights, solidarity with the Tibetan people. This rally is jointly organized by the Tibetan community in Britain, Free Tibet, Student for Free Tibet, Voluntary Tibet Advocacy Group, and the Global Alliance for Tibet and Persecuted Minority. Today, Tibetans and supporters across the world are observing the 67th anniversary of Tibetan National Uprising of 10 March 1959. On this day, we gather in rallies, remembrance events to honor the brave Tibetans who sacrificed their lives for the freedom and future of Tibet. This day marks a very sad and painful chapter in our history. It was the time when Tibet lost its freedom, its government, its land, its economic independence. Thousands of Tibetans lost their lives during the revolt against Chinese annexation. Many Buddhist institutions, monasteries, cultural sites were destroyed and razed to the ground. Our monument was damaged by mining and Chinese high-tech project. Tibetans became minority in their own country and countless Tibetan activities, scholars were imprisoned, tortured, persecuted under the rule of Chinese Communist Party. Despite all this hardship, we stand firm in our belief and in our truth. Without hesitation, I say that Tibet was an independent country with its own unique culture, identity, passport, national flag, territory, government, currency, custom, and border with the neighboring countries. Historically, Tibet has never been part of People's Republic of China. Tibet's recorded history stretches back more than 2,000 years, beginning around 100% BCE. For centuries, Tibet maintained its political and cultural identity. There is substantial history evidence. For example, the Lhasa Convention was signed between Tibetan and British representatives during the expedition led by Francis' young husband in 1904. At that time, the Chinese body didn't yet exist. Later, His Holiness the Dalai Lama proclaimed Tibet's independence and expelled the Chinese forces in 1913. Another important agreement was the revised Shimla Convention, signed on 3rd July 1914 between Tibetan and British representatives. In 1959, so-called 17-point agreement was forced upon Tibet by People's Republic of China under military pressure and signed under duress. The Tibetan people never freely accepted this agreement, and many international observers have questioned its legitimacy. More recently, the Chinese scholars Phuntsok in his book Tibet Brief and the international legal expert Michael van Pra have written Tibet was historically never part of China since antiquity. Looking at the background of the 1959 uprising, tensions between the Tibetans and Chinese authorities had been growing for years. Tibetans were deeply concerned about increasing Chinese military presence, the bombardment of the Summer Palace, Nobulinga, and the Winter Palace, Podala Palace, and interference in Tibetan political and religious life. On 10 March 1959, thousands of Tibetans gathered in Tibet's capital Lhasa to protect His Holiness Dalai Lama, fearing the Chinese authority intend to take or abduct His Holiness because the Chinese General Pan was inviting His Holiness Dalai Lama to the Chinese military base for show business without his bodyguard and security. What began as a protected gathering soon became a mass uprising against Chinese rule. Tibetan men, women, monks, nuns, ordinary citizens, government officials stood together in a peaceful protest to defend their freedom, their spiritual and temporal leader, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and their nation. Sadly, the uprising was violently suppressed, leading to great loss of life, eventual exile of His Holiness Dalai Lama on 17 March 1959, followed by tens of thousands of Tibetans. Even today, Tibetans inside Tibet continue to face restriction on religious freedom, harassment, mistreatment, surveillance on pro-democracy activists and scholars, limitation on cultural expression, basic human rights. Yet the Tibetan spirit remains strong and never giving up hope for the last 67 years. Tibet, as we remember those who sacrificed their lives, especially in 1959, 1987, and 2008. Nearly 160 Tibetans have self-immolated, calling for freedom and return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet. We also renew our commitment, justice, truth, peaceful struggle for the rights and dignity of Tibetan people. We need to work harder, persistent for the Sino-Tibetan conflict and resolution. Taking this chance, thank you to Alicia Kearns, MP, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. Alicia Kearns was the first woman to ever elected to the role and youngest female chair of a Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Lord David Alton, Chair of the Joint Committee on Human Rights, Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliament Group on Tibet, also a cross-bench member of the House of Lords. And many of you remember, Luke D. Palford gave us a wonderful speech here last year as well. He has been actively involved in recent coalition rallies opposing the proposed Chinese embassy at the Royal Mint Court. It is an honor to have Alicia, Lord Alton, Norman Becker, former MP, Luke with us today. So on behalf of the organizer, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks goes to all the dignitary speakers for your inspiring speeches, voices at the rally, your precious time, showing your solidarity with the Tibetan people. We are grateful for your continued support and solidarity in standing up for human rights, freedom for the people of Tibet. Your continued support means a lot to us, and thank you very much. Also, my appreciation and thanks goes to organizers, volunteers, everyone here for your support, presence, participation. I must thank those who involved in 10 March preparation, especially Sri Prasanna, Rabga, and our youth for your contribution, effort at the time. Lastly, I would like to say, truth will prevail. We always win in the end. It is a matter of time. History tells us that every rise has fallen. One day, sun will shine again in Tibet. Never lose hope, never give up until we fulfill our goal. We have the truth and facts. I urge, tell the CCP, time has come now for dialogue to resolve Tibet problem and Sino-Tibetan conflict. Thank you all. Long live His Holiness Dalai Lama! Long live His Holiness Dalai Lama! Long live His Holiness Dalai Lama! Tibet belongs to you. Tibet belongs to you. Tibet belongs to you. Tibet belongs to you. What do you want? Freedom. What do you want? Freedom. What do you want? Freedom. Stop cultural genocide in Tibet. Stop cultural genocide in Tibet. Stop cultural genocide in Tibet. Stop transnational repression. Stop transnational repression. Stop transnational repression. Release Gundi Chejinjima. Release Gundi Chejinjima. Release Gundi Chejinjima. Stop colonial bodies going in Tibet. Stop colonial bodies going in Tibet. Stop colonial bodies in Tibet. Stop yelling Chamber River Hydro Dam project. Stop yelling Chamber River Hydro Dam project. People of the world, support us. People of the world, support us. People of the world, support us. People of Tibet, we are with you. People of Tibet, we are with you. Thank the Lord. Thank you. Hey, Galo! Hey, Galo! Hey, Galo! Nam je kawa ja de ba gong la bre se na dang ge jo cho ka som je ke la ke zo ve ta se ke ta yun da so de jo je ve da me yan be ke ko se de be la o jo de ji ne ji ye ke ye na bon do da ve si na jo men de ye le 예, 숨죽합니다.
Take
다 숨지 되는이라.
Yeah. Dona gombu chiri sewa ki seji yawe chenga kanjeshi Yonsu ya cheme lam kanze pa te sandindu nyu tu chawasu Nando chenyi samu Tende eba Chusum tu che tu ta tenzi tu Lende lume de tu Ta cha kiye Tembe mulam ke men yun tu shu Karirawe kowe shingamsa Pendan dewa malu jungwe ne Shere sewa tenzi Shabe side padu tengyuchi
Kujichi, dijala nga zida rudi dina nipa jami masho shunzab dila dowe re ane nga zide mi khaan leba di nga rang zo chi pa tisu di abuchi tangwa samba tengi duro ane de rudi kaso tambo kemburum chi kuwa chi ane pe gera ane dila ni chini pe re dise mi mambo nga zo tuji dunze rubu chi ma yinba nga zo paanti ma cheba chini ane nga rang zo teze pepa khaan leba di teze ma nyangwa di kechimbo re ane de gala jami tanda masho shunzab dozo de nga zo tanda skabu dundu di tanda nga zo pa lena mi de desa namji na shi teze samare ya dila teze namba zo so na te samshin naru na shwe pa kaji namji zomsa di da skabu dung chidu nga zo desa di yang patsu tsu ze yi si bari kato ne dawa si bari odi samshin naru na shwe ani da nga zo tanda nalamba steward masho dunga gashi chiye ina khonzo pa zo tanda traffic la nga zo crossing chidi ro rabat naru na ani da nga shi da roti di ningi ji do de do mi de chi rabat naru na shwe ni ani nga zo da langa la tanda di chuju chuni sim ye di ani long ge di mi zo shala che chilo la che do di 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 nga zo ke je da do so tota je de ke chim re sam ba tengi do ke kan shu shu ke na shwe ni ani ga si de langa la yan di go na wa do la yan da chen chung ba na nga zo tan da di me sha ba di ki pan la yo re ani ya di ki pan la de wa chiro na shwe ni ani nga zo ke zo ya bu ge ni ani nam che ya bu do ani kale kale pe na di wo re ka ni wa YMCA de nga zo chu zo tang bon access yo re ani nga zo chu ni ba zo ba le ba na ani shagan program go zo yo re ani ke janga de megaphone ni yo re ani free Tibet kan la portable speaker di ke re chada megaphone ni chala bati dang ko ge chung sara sa kang le ke thau du injin ji ke di ke shu go ndo zo injin ji de go thi na shoi ani number zo ji di na ro na shoi ani langala de nyoga shege na ngaze police la ala chi share ngaze la police escort chi ni yore kadina ngaze ne je de ji yore ngaze chi pa mare ta viga dan ani Chinese dissident ani Hong Kong constitution kadina konta ni ko gor ngaze chi pa mare ta lo sum te shi de da singo kon de mare ne ko ko le ya shi da si ga mi do ani chilo le na ngaze nyando pa te se ngaze che chala ma yin se karo che se lab chu re ani Stop!
Stop the torture! Stop the torture! Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide! What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? When do we want it? Shame, shame! Shame, shame! China, China, China! China, China, China! China, China, China! We demand! We demand! We demand! Long live! Long live! Human rights! Human rights! Shame on! Shame on! China, China, China! China, China, China! Tibet belongs to! Tibet belongs to! What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? When do we want it? Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Xi Jinping! Xi Jinping! People of the world! People of the world! People of the world! Wake up, wake up! Wake up, wake up! Wake up, wake up! United Nations! United Nations! United Nations! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide! Stop killing! Stop killing! Stop the torture! Stop the torture! Stop the colonial boarding school! Stop the colonial boarding school! Stop the repression! Stop the repression! Stop the transnational repression! Stop the transnational repression! We demand! We demand! Release, release! Release, release! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Tibet will never die!
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 Tibet belongs to! Tibet belongs to! People of the world! People of the world! Wake up, wake up! Wake up, wake up! What do we want? What do we want? Stop the colonial boarding school! Stop the colonial boarding school! Stop the cultural genocide! Stop the cultural genocide! Stop the killing! Stop the killing! Stop the construction of dams! Stop the construction of dams! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Shame, shame! Tibet belongs to! Tibet belongs to! Tibet belongs to! Long live! Long live! Long live! Shame on! Shame on! Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide! Thank you.
Oh